1 second. Okay, there we go. Good stuff. Hey, Bobby, what's up, buddy? Welcome, welcome. So we are, so we're on, and as I'm having these conversations with the coach, and it's really a lot about accountability, a lot about setting targets and setting your weekly, daily, weekly, monthly, 30, 60, 90-day goals. And I think really one of the things that so far that I'm taking away from everything is how important, or maybe not even important, is how strategic they are about creating these things and continue to pound them so you're on top of whatever it is that you're doing. So if you're building something, if you're recreating something, if you're growing something, if you're learning something, they're going to put down these lines in the sand, right? You got to get over the line. So they're going to continue to pound these things because this is how you stay accountable. So the really, like, the beautiful thing about about the mentorship program, and I'm just sharing that with you because we'll talk a little bit more about some of the topics, but is that this accountability process is always ongoing, and you have to get it done. It's like you can't not get it done because you've just shelled out thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, depending on the program that you've picked. And it's so important that you get your money's worth for them, probably more than for you. Because guess what? They don't want you to stop being coached by them, because they want you to continue to pay, right? The best customer is a customer that keeps coming back, right? A repeat customer is your best customer. If you create a product or a service that someone's going to continue to go get and continue to go buy or have a subscription for, that's the best customer. Why do you think ACN is so excited about the fact that they have services? They don't have to continue to go back to the customer to ask them if they want the service. They're just going to pay for it monthly. So it's like getting, hitting two birds with one stone for them. So any traditional business, you're going to need to have a product that either someone runs out of, that's a consumable, or whatever it is, or it's so good that they want to come back for. And training happens to be coaching, mentorship. All of these things are becoming a lot more popular because people don't want to stay in the same area. They don't want to live in poverty. They've realized that middle class doesn't exist. Okay, they've understood that it's all BS. It's all something that the politicians just talk about. But in reality, there's really no middle class, because even if you take a person who is from, let's say, upper middle class, what are they making? 250,000, 300,000, 400,000, $500,000 a year. Their standard of living always moves up with the money that they earn. So what ends up happening is that they live more expensively, which means they still can't save 40%, which is what you're supposed to save, which is what the 1 and the 10%ers do. They save 40% to reinvest. Okay, everything else they use either to live or to buy things and whatever. But Grant says if you can't save 40% from what you make after taxes, then you're no class. There's no class. You're either broke or you're just you're just over broke, right? Which is something that some people refer to as a job. And the issue is that you should be able to afford anything you want. You should be able to have anything that you want, because you, as a human being, you as an individual, you as a unique person with with desires, with wants, with dreams, of whatever it is that you want, you deserve everything that you want. It's just that most people are stuck in that place. They're stuck in poverty. And I don't necessarily say that lightly. And I don't necessarily say that to, to offend anyone, but sometimes we need to be offended because it's going to get us out to think differently. So his idea and his training and his thinking and the way that he, the way that he portrays getting out of this middle, quote unquote, middle class, or
Yep.
getting out, not being able to afford the things that you really want in life, or not being able to save 40%, right? 10%, 5%, 15%, that's not savings. It's really funny because one of the one of the things that he says is that um, uh, you can only save yourself to death. And there's people that have been saving and saving and saving, them they die and they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in their bank accounts. They never get a chance to use that money. That's not because they're middle class or not middle class, upper. That's just not the way it works. You never let your money sit anywhere because that's just unwise. You always need to have money. If and and the funny thing is he always says, like, whatever you guys are holding in your pocket, these dollar bills, these $100 bills, whatever it is, like, it's just paper. And someone told you that there's value in that piece of paper, right? It's just, just like a candy wrapper. Someone told you there was value in a candy wrapper. So unless you turn that piece of paper into something that's going to generate revenue for you, or give you revenue for your mind, which is personal growth, right? Which is an investment in yourself. That's what so we talked about last time. If you're going to the convention, stay at the most expensive hotel. That's an investment in you, because you can then spend time with people that are where you want to be in life. That's where the investment in yourself starts to really pay off. And instead of going to a place that costs less money, stay in a place that costs more. So you don't have to take a taxi to your hotel and be there with nobody to talk to look up to interact with, to introduce yourself to learn from, to get somebody's contact info from. You're robbing yourself of the opportunity, and you think you're saving money. And what are you saving for? It doesn't matter if you don't have it. Everyone has a credit card. I'm not saying go into debt, but I'm saying don't waste an opportunity to be in a place where lots of people that are making lots of money are, and they are where you want to be, escape you. Don't do that. Always find a place where you can plug in or go to, where people that have money live. And the question he always asks is, who's got my money? Who has my money? He's always going after that, right? So for him, he says that success is an obligation. I know you've heard a lot of people say that. It's your duty as a human being. Imagine if it wasn't a money issue, or a money what's the best way to put this? Let's say it wasn't, let's say it was ethical. Money was an ethical situation, or success was an ethical situation, not a money situation. Like, what's an ethical thing that you think that's important, right? Being moral, being ethical, being courteous, being a good person, doing the right things for other people. Imagine if success was just an ethical thing. Like, that's something that you can't not ignore, right? Like helping somebody on the street who is elderly or who fell, or getting, helping them cross the street or holding the door for somebody, right? Imagine if that success was like that, like it was an ethical thing. It wasn't just a money thing. Like, how would you approach your life at that point? Like, what would you have to do to create success to be an ethical thing? And that's what he talks about all the time. He's like, it's your duty. You can't live like this. How much longer do you want to be in the place where you are? And we're going to be where we are as long as we allow ourselves to be there. As long as we let ourselves off the hook, as long as we're not honest with ourselves, as long as we're not confronting the things that we need to do, as long as we continue to, I don't want to say procrastinate, but not face the things that's stopping us from having the wealth. Start something, create that momentum. I always feel like, and I'm so guilty of this, because like when I have a conversation that like I really get excited about, an opportunity or whatever we're doing, and we're brainstorming, and there's so many good things coming out of this conversation. I have like 3 pages of notes. Guys, I've been taking notes like crazy. It doesn't stop. I can't not, it's just insane. And it's not just so I go back to the notes, but it's just so when you're writing it down, it solidifies it a little bit, within you. Then you can go over them. That's fine, right? But just that's being able to solidify, when you're writing something down. So, and what are having these brainstorming activities, right? And you get off the phone or you get off the call, you're excited. That is the time to start getting into action right there and then, because that's how you create the momentum. And a lot of the times I even find myself, I'm like, oh, dude, that was such a great session. It just made so much more sense. I know exactly what I got to do right now. So I go to the kitchen, I get a glass of water or a cup of coffee. I'm like, get ready to go to do work, and I get distracted. Right. Either somebody calls me, somebody reaches out. I realize I got to pick up the kids, or I got to, clean something, or I got to put something in the oven, or I got to take something out of the oven. I got to do something with the laundry. It totally shifts that ability to act, that point of really getting in and driving the knife through, right? Just through that butter or through whatever. You know what I'm saying? So like, this is really where so many of us kind of fall short, because we get excited about something and we just let it go. Because you're full of energy, you're super hyped up, things are happening, and then, so I try to come back from that and say, all right, you got to focus, get back, drop everything you're doing, become aware, right? And I think we talked a little bit about this last time, but being aware of your thoughts and being aware of where you are, and looking at what you're doing objectively is so, so, so important, because it forces you to come out of where you are mentally in the present. And it immediately kind of takes you out. You can look at yourself as a person like, okay, where am I? What am I doing right now? What should I be doing right now? What am I not doing that I should be doing, or that I could be doing? Right. And then you're going to start to come up with all of these different things. So it's like, well, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that. Right. You got to stop with the excuses and get into the doing. So a lot of us have this, this moment of enlightenment, or this moment of a realization. We're like, oh, if I could just do that a little bit every day, or twice a day, or 5 times a day, whatever that number is, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I could have so much success in anything I do, in anything I put my mind to, right? Because you did it a little bit, you just did it a little bit, and you got so excited about it. Right. And to continue that momentum, to continue going from that little excitement to going, imagine the possibility. My God, if this could really happen for me, but you got to build on this. Right? Well, what is it that you want to happen? And as I'm watching these trainings, and all of these things come into my mind, so I gotta pause and I write stuff down. I gotta, I'm listening. I'll pause again. I'll put some thought down. I'll go back to the thoughts and I'll expand on them a little bit. Have a conversation with somebody about it, whatever it is. And as I'm doing all of these things, right, I realize that um, I have so many ideas that could be implemented, right? There's so many thoughts that go through your mind. Like thoughts are things, right? Thoughts are things. Whatever you think about most, you're going to become. And I keep thinking to myself, all right, so okay, so what's my focus? What do I do? How do I get to this place? How do I get to this number? And as I'm thinking, like, what is the number that I want to get to? Right? You guys, every single one of you has to have a number. And so when we first started this leadership training, I said the first thing you should be doing is writing your goals down every morning and every night, right? And in the goals you should have a number of the amount of money and revenue you're generating every single month, and then the number of the money that you're worth. And you need to, whatever number you're thinking of right now, you need to multiply that by 10. And that's the 10x rule from Grant. So if you're thinking, well, I want to make $10,000 a month, multiply that by 10. If I want to make $5,000 a month, multiply that by 10. If I want to make $150 a month, multiply that by 10. Okay, and then whatever you decide that you're worth, think of that number, multiply by 10, and that's where you should be aiming. Because you're going to do a lot more things. Well, not really a lot more things. Your drive is going to be 10 times more intense if you're going to be going after $100,000 a month, as if you were thinking of getting $10,000 a month. True or not true? Here's the really funny thing, you guys. You guys ready for this? This is huge right here. The amount of work that you're going to do to get the 10,000 is the same amount of work you will do to get to 100,000. That's the crazy part. And no one understands this. Do you know that there's about 1% of people in America that make minimum wage? Maybe 2%. You guys know that? What do they talk about? What do they always talk about in the news? We have to raise the minimum wage. Right? They always talk about this. It's less than 2% of America that makes minimum wage. Less than 2% of Americans make minimum wage. So why are they talking about it constantly? That's crazy. Shouldn't they be talking about more about people like, how do we help people make $250,000 to $500,000? Like how do we do that? What courses should they take at college? What are the things that they should be learning in college? Or is college even worth it at this point? Why are they going there? So the numbers that I'm talking to you about, you guys, we have as a country, I think, as a community, as a culture, is that we've given up on the things that we truly want. Like, yeah, you can come to America and do anything you want, but you can't be complacent. And so many people fall there. Like Grant didn't really make most of his money until he was in his early 50s. Yeah, he's made $1 million here, he's made $1 million there, he's made a couple million there, whatever. But he didn't really become like Grant Cardone, the man that everyone's looking for right now, who's a multi-billionaire at this point, until he was in his early 50s. How many of you think we have a little bit of time? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on? Like, you can do this at any point in your life, depending on how much you want it. So you have to have numbers. You gotta have the numbers. You gotta know what you want to make a year. You gotta know what you want to make a month. And he put this really, really cool comparison. And you know, he talked about this. It was really interesting because so every Thursday we have this coaching call, right? That's for everybody who's in the program. And there's different types of programs, so they have access. So every Thursday at 5 o'clock, there's somebody from Grant's office. He's got like 800 employees, I think, right now at this point, something like that. And one of his top people, you know, whether it's a sales, well, whether it's somebody from marketing, whether it's somebody from you know, events, whether it's somebody, you know, one of his business partners, whether it's himself or whatever, you know, and they get on the call and they give you like 35 to 40 minutes of pure strategy of how to multiply either your income, you know, your leads, your customers, your exposure, your you know, your marketing, your branding, whatever it is, right? Depending on what the topic is. So last Thursday, Grant was on himself, and I was like, oh crap, Grant's on. That's so cool. And like I wasn't expecting him, you know, to come. He just shows up, and all it was just Q&A, right? And I first of all, I couldn't kids everything, right? So I got on the call. I got on the call at like 4:25. So it was 25 minutes late. They do have the calls recorded. I'll try to get it for you guys and just at least get the audio for you, and I'll share it with you. But if I can, I don't know if I can. We'll see. Whatever, I'll try. But it was so interesting because you know he talked. You know, somebody asked him a question, he answered it, etc. But he talked about this really great ratio that I'll share with you in a minute. And he said you got to figure out. You got to work backwards. And he says, here's what I mean. Like if you decide to make $1 million a year, and I think that should be your first goal. Okay. Um, you know, if you're in a business, if you own a business, if you want to, if you can do this, by the way, because the work is the same as if you make $100,000. I'm telling you, the work is the same. It's the same amount of hours. It's the same amount of effort. It's the same amount of this. It's just how you use the time and effort and the steps you're taking. Right? There's going to be just as much work. So it's a lot more interesting to work towards $1 million than 100 grand. Does that make sense? It's just so much more juicy, right? So he says the first thing you want to do is to start working backwards. And if your goal is to make $1 million, you have to find something that's worth $1 million and sell it to one person. But that's probably not going to happen. Are there things worth $1 million? Of course. Real estate, companies, right? Products, whatever. There's different things, services, but you're not in that position, and neither am I. So he said, okay, so how about we take that a step forward and work backwards, right? And here's what he means. He said, how about we find 10 people that will buy something that costs 100,000, because that's also $1 million. Okay. Well, I don't know a product that costs 100 grand, and you probably don't either. And if you guys know a lot of people that are very wealthy, what would they buy for 100,000? We don't know. All right, so let's continue going. So how about 100 people buying something that's 10,000? No, not 100 people. 1,000 people that buy 10,000. Right? I have my notes. I don't have my math, right? But I do have my notes. Hang on. This one. So I just still mix up the numbers. I trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. All right. So one person, $1 million, 10 people, $100,000, right? We don't know anybody like that. 100 people at 10,000. So if you have a product, or you can come up with a product or create something that costs $10,000, all you have to do is sell that 100 times, and you have $1 million. So you see where I'm going with this? It's really, really important that you guys understand this, because It's going to come down to whatever it is you're doing, you can do this. Okay, how about 1,000 people sell something to 1,000 people that costs $1,000? That's $1 million in revenue. So do you know 1,000 people? Most likely. Do you have a product that's worth $1,000 that you can go and sell to them? If the answer is no, you got to continue going backwards. So $100 product to 10,000 people. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay. So because a lot of people can afford $100. True or not true? Right? A lot of people can afford $100. The question is, how do you find 10,000 people to buy the $100 product? So there's different spaces for that, right? You guys have one platform that'll allow you to do that, right? ACN, businesses that you guys have, because they have products that generate that type of revenue, just the amount of clients that you guys have. Now, okay, so let's go to a $10 product. Now, everyone can afford a $10 product. You just have to find 100,000 people to buy it to get to the million. Now that becomes real. That becomes a real business. So find out, and I'm not just talking about ACN, because he doesn't obviously talk about just network marketing. He talks about different businesses, whatever it is, products, services, etc. But you can apply this to anything because it's the same thing. It works because the amount of work is the same, right? And here is the last one, you guys. 1 million people to buy something that's worth $1. And let me tell you guys, here's what's so amazing. People do this every day on Amazon. Every day. They sell a little rinky-dink thing that costs $1, $1.99, $3.99, $5.99, cell phone cases, hair ties, you name it. Remote control covers, I don't know, screen protections. It's just unreal what you guys can do. The only thing that we don't know is that we never look at numbers. We keep thinking, okay, I need to make X amount. Okay, well, how do you do that? Well, what's the goal? What's the strategy? How do you get to that? How do you get to that thing? Right? And it's interesting because I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's a lot of customers. How would I be able to do that? Obviously, promotion. Obviously, there's different ways to attract other customers. Your power base, which is the people that you know, your list. We call that a list, right? And then we can offer them some services. We can offer them the opportunity, and whatever it is. I understand that you don't get the $2.99 when somebody joins because you're not ACN, but that's not the point. The point is that this big volume of revenue that continues to get generated and created, you can do that. You can do that through distribution like ACN. You can do that through, creating your own product that's worth X amount of dollars. You can do that by constantly having this in your calendar, that every morning that you wake up and you put your goals down or you write the things down that you really want in your life, knowing that success is a duty, knowing that it's ethical to be successful. All of those things constantly, reimagine them in your mind. You can come up with an idea. Even Earl Nightingale says, come wake up every morning and write 5 things down. It doesn't matter if someone already did it. 1, you can do it better than somebody else. 2, it'll just give you an idea on a piece of paper. And eventually, maybe you'll come up with something. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm saying you should try. You should focus. It'll give you that jumping off platform. You can jump off it because you'll have a foundation. So once you have that, once you can jump off, you have a little bit of momentum. And this is where the action starts to come into play. So put the things down, put them on paper. White space on your calendar is the enemy of production and plants the seeds of doubt. How much white space do you have on your calendar is the question. Right. And I don't mean like don't take like we don't count US holidays as something on your calendar, okay, guys? Like how much space do you have on your calendar? So it's like, oh, you got work. I got it. Okay, what about after work? What about during lunch? What about during a break, during snack time? Right? Like he doesn't take lunch. He makes it a meeting with people to go out, to shake new hands, to meet new people, to sit down with somebody over a Zoom call or in person, eat and talk and create conversation, get new contacts. Like how productive would your day be if you did that 3 or 4 times a week? At work or on Zoom or meet somebody on LinkedIn and say, hey, when do you go to lunch? Awesome. Me too. Why don't we get on a call and talk a little bit about whatever you're doing? This creates this will create a habit within you guys. Imagine how many new people at the 3 people a week. That's 156 people a year. Brand new people. And just think, if you do this the right way, if you do it properly, okay, each person that you guys meet, I promise you know someone else, at least one other person. So think of how many people you can truly meet by doing this 2, 3 times a week, 3, 4 times a week, once a week. Make it a point not to waste your lunchtime. Make it a point not to waste time doing whatever it is that you could be doing, because you can grow, continue to grow. Right? Like, I think, who was it that said this? I don't remember. I think it was Darren Hardy. He said, I never get into my car without having something that I'm going to be listening to that's going to continue to allow me to grow. Well, listening to like some personal growth stuff or some inspirational material. Like I never do that. I don't listen to music in the car. And it's important. Look, now I don't have a choice sometimes because I'm with the kids, so I have to listen to music. They're not gonna let me listen to Jim Rohn or Grant, or Darren Hardy or people like that, Brian Tracy, right? They're not gonna let me do it. So sometimes I'll put it in my ear and just listen off my phone. But then I'm disengaging. So I try when the kids aren't there and I'm alone in the car, driving to an appointment, driving a meeting, doing whatever, I always make it a point to be listening to something that's going to allow me to grow, because it's a habit and it's a muscle that you guys build. Same thing with success. That's a muscle. As the second you start to build it is the minute it starts to grow. It's going to be tough to see results right away. It's going to be harder than it's going to be harder to start. Yeah, it's impossible to start. Like it's absolutely impossible to start a new routine, because the second you start a new routine in your mind, you have to give something up in your life. Because in place of what you were doing during this time, now you have to put in this new routine. Now you have to put in this new habit that's going to continue to let you grow. But guess what, you guys? You can't learn anything new unless you have room in your mind to learn something new. You have to allow to let go of some things in your mind. Just throw them out, disregard them. And this is so tough for us because we've built so many bad habits. of, well, I got to wake up, I got to look at the weather, I got to make sure I know what to wear to work, I got to make sure I look, this and this and that, I got to make sure that I listen to the news, I got to make sure I know what's going on in the world, so I'm worldly, right? I got to make sure, that I know what's happening, because I can't just ignore everything that's going on. And then you get into this habit, and then 30 minutes go by, and instead of feeding your mind something positive, like, we've now just got more and more and more distracted from where we're supposed to be in our mind. And again, the awareness is always going to come. Like, you gotta force yourself to be aware of what's happening. Larry says this all the time: stand guard at the door of your mind. Be careful about what you let in. Make sure that doesn't poison you. Make sure that doesn't throw you off track. Make sure that you are where you need to be. And if it does come in, then make sure you know how to get rid of it. So that's when the awareness comes in. Like, oh, wait a second. I'm thinking of something crazy and stupid. I don't want to think about this. Hang on a minute. I think I'm about to get into an argument. Uh-oh, this is escalating too quickly. Should I be really doing this? Should I be really focusing on who is right or who is wrong here? Or should I really focus on what's more important than the argument? Right? And that goes for anybody, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's your customer, your client, a person you're piquing, right? Pick the people you want to, you want to surround yourself with. So it's always create these little things in your mind. Always surround yourself with things that'll motivate you and inspire you to continue to become better. Like, in my ritual every morning, when I sit down and write my goals, one of the things I write is, I'm constantly expanding my thinking to allow me to lead better and to grow. And the word constantly or consistently is really important here, because first of all, you write all the goals in present tense as it's already happening. And this way you'll start to become that person, right? They always say, if you want to be an SVP, you got to think like an SVP. You got to become the SVP. And everyone's like, wow, that's impossible. I don't have any money. How can I do that? I don't have the abilities. I can just, yes, you have all of the abilities and you have all of the money. I mean, they do the same things you do. They talk to, you know, they talk to people, they acquire customers, they talk to people about the opportunity. They just do it a lot more, or they've done it a lot more, and they failed a lot more than you have. That's why they are where they are. And same thing with any business. This is like, fail hard, fail fast, as quickly as possible. Like, nobody wants to do that. Great thing is, Grant always says, he's like, find the things that people never want to do in their life and do those things, and you're going to become rich, and you're going to become a millionaire, you're going to become successful. Find the biggest problem you can, because most people don't want to do that. They don't want to solve that problem because they hate it. Because they hate working on these things. They hate it. They just despise some of these things. Find a solution for it, and guys, you will become like ridiculously successful. You know what people hate the most? They think that selling is the worst thing in the world. I'm telling you, it's crazy. They sell every single day without realizing it, and and at most they hate the profession. It's like, oh, I never want to be in sales. I want to be straight up. Oh, is it convince someone to buy something they don't want to buy? I don't want to do that. But you're convincing somebody not to buy. Or you're convincing yourself that you don't want to do this. That's called a sale. You're just selling to yourself. And it's the wrong sale. You're just on the wrong side of the place. So you're either selling something or you're being sold something. And it's so great because even in the book, I'm about halfway through it. And in the book, he says, we talked a lot about this, by the way. The only reason why you don't sell is because either one, you don't believe in the product, or you don't believe in the company, you don't believe in what it stands for, you're not 100% sold on it yourself. And whatever that is, that can be ACN, that can be the opportunity, that can be a service that ACN offers. Take anything, right? And the only reason why you don't succeed at acquiring a customer is because you don't believe enough in the service. Because if you did, then you'd be the one selling. Because if you don't sell, that means they sold you on the fact that they're not going to buy. Does that make sense, you guys? Like if they don't acquire the product or they don't sign up for a service, they sold you on the fact that they're not buying or subscribing. And you bought it. You bought their idea, their thought, their negativity, their objection. You bought it. So that's why here, where it says sell or be sold, it's always one or the other. And it's so incredible because, like, when people say I hate sales, it's everything is about sales. Everything. And like, because, and even I hate it, but I love the fact that I hate it because I know so many people hate it, and then I want to become so good at it. Because if I can solve a problem of people hating the sales, then I can create wealth and I can have success because people hate to do it. So whatever people hate to do, there's probably a lot of money in it. That's what's really funny, right? Because we always just want to do love to do the things that we want to do. That's correct. It's probably looking for. And that's one of the things that, like, we don't want to, we just stay away from that. Oh, yeah, that, like whatever you're thinking right now, you never want to do. That's what you should probably focus on. Hold on one second. I'm going to pause this. Our mind is trying to always work in ways that will create something that's better. Okay, especially if you're doing personal growth, if you're doing your meditations, if you're constantly thinking about what it is that you want, right? Because thoughts are things, right? You become what you think of most. So it's always about picking up something else. Like, why would you reread a book? Not many people reread books, and I think that's a grave mistake. Because every time you pick up the same book to read it, even though the book's the same, you're not the same. See, you're not the same after you read the chapter or a paragraph in the book. If you reread it, you're now a different person because you already know what the chapter is. So the first time you read it, you were yourself. The second time you read it, you're already somebody else because now there's more knowledge, there's more notion, there's more awareness of what you're reading about. So the second time you read it, you're a different person. And why would you read it the third time? Well, like sometimes you'll watch ever watch a movie for the second time, you're like, oh, I never noticed that the first time I watched it, right? Because you weren't paying attention. See, you're different when you watch it the second time because you might focus on something that you don't realize you needed to focus on the first time around. And that's where things start to really happen for you because that's when your mind is being expanded. In those moments where you pick up the few words, where you pick up the few phrases, where you pick up the few notions, where you pick up the few ideas, whether it's a training, whether it's an event, whether it's a presentation, whatever it is, whenever you're there and you're picking that up, that's how your mind is expanding. That's the expansion of your mind. So this is really where you want to live, you guys. Okay? In the place where you know something, you think you know something, read it over, I'm like, I get this now. Now I know why this book is so important. Now I know why Think and Grow Rich is so important. I know people that have read that book 50 times. And every time they find something new, and that, whatever it is they find, they're looking for in their life at that moment. Because when you're looking for something, your mind subconsciously is also looking for it. So when you least expect it, it'll come to you. So people say like, oh, it's a coincidence. There's no coincidences. It doesn't work like that. It's just you're attracting what through law of attraction, you are attracting that is what that you're mostly thinking about. So when you're thinking about something and it's really important to you and you don't think in negative terms about it, it starts to come towards you. Okay. So when you start to realize how important that is, that's the expanding. That's the constantly working on expanding my thinking. And this is where everybody should always be, expanding your thinking, becoming more aware, whatever it is. But it's going to allow you to grow. It's going to allow you to move from one place to the next, and it's going to allow you to be more in tune with the energy and with the vibrations that you need to attract the things in your life that you truly want. And most people I have some friends that like I talk to them about spirituality, law of attraction, like it goes right over their head. Just whew. Like they are so grounded. They're so at the surface that they can't even imagine that there's something else in the world that we can't see or we can't comprehend or we can't, visualize or that we can't touch that's actually there. So how do you get away from that? How do you separate? Well, you have to separate yourself. You got to separate yourself from some of those people. I'm not saying you have to stop being friends with them, but you always want to increase your vibrations. You always want to do better. You always want to be in gratitude. Because that's how it starts. That's why it's so important to have a gratitude journal in the morning. That's why it's important to journal the things you're doing, writing things down. Right? That's why that's so important. You guys think it's just a practice to get you into doing something. This is what allows you, and this is what allows your energy and your vibrations to start to go higher, to create these vibrations. And the higher your vibrations are, the quicker you'll be able to attract the things that you truly want in your life. So when something comes into your life that you've been wanting, or something good happens, it's not a coincidence. You've been thinking about it and working on it and putting the right amount of energy into that space, right? Where focus goes, energy flows. Because whatever you focus on, you're going to attract. Keep thinking about getting into an accident, you're going to get into an accident. You keep thinking about getting a ticket, you're going to get a ticket. Keep thinking about a flat tire, you're going to get a flat tire. You keep thinking about money, you're going to get money. Just that we don't think about that and we focus on the lack. And that's where you start to draw your vibrations down. And that's where they become so, so, so low, you can't attract anything into your life. Then you get into a spiral of depression and blame, and I'm not worthy, and nothing ever comes to me, nothing I ever want will ever happen for me. And that's when you start, to degrade. You got to be really careful about where you are. If you feel yourself and if you find yourself there, the first thing that I would suggest, do Tony's priming. Just prime. All right, stand up, shake it off, jump up a few times, do some priming, and get into a state of gratitude. And I'm telling you, you'll reverse that right away. Whatever it is you're thinking about, whatever it is that's happening in your life, just make it happen.